Hello, this is Justin Canese for Mr. Mullen, the Humanities 245, and this is my video presentation of my essay over, the Andrew Carnegie's workforce and homestead in 1892 in the lockout. I kind of chose this essay topic after reading an essay in the class book by Janet Zandi, Decloaking Class, Why Class Identity and Consciousness Count. She revealed that, American history has been defined in textbooks by the military heroes, the elites, the presidents, the politicians, and the corporate owners, and the famous people. And the workers aren't as known throughout history. You don't really hear too much about, you know, laborers, the people who create the food that we eat, the products that we use, the resources that we use. And that's why I wanted to write about the homestead lockout. The workers under Andrew Carnegie, they suffered a lot. They did not have good lives. They worked extensive hours for very little pay. And it was something that I wanted to write about. And I had two goals. One was to understand their lives, the conditions, and to understand how the homestead, the unions, like the Amalgamated Steel Union and the Federation of Labor, helped help help fight for their wages, and really they failed in the end, and it would take another 45 to 50 years for steel workers to form a decent union. But under Andrew Carnegie, the workers, they worked 72 hours a week, 72 hours a week, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, in some of the most dangerous working conditions. You see, Carnegie, he was actually a self-made man. He grew up in a middle-class family, and he invested in the railroad, and he eventually had enough money, capital, to create the American steel industry. And steel was booming. It was a new metal that overtook iron ore, because iron ore was it was cracky. The rails weren't the rails used for railroads weren't as good as the steel, and steel was able to be produced faster and easier. So Carnegie took over the failing iron businesses and created a huge industry. And overall, 250,000 workers made it up. Furnacemen, cindermen, ashmen, and other workers, and they were Slavic, Irish, and Welsh, all kinds of different, immigrant ethnic groups took these jobs. But they only got paid around 215 in today's money. They only got paid around $215 a week. And I found that out by the Oregon State University, their configuration of today's currency into the past years. And imagine it, working 70 hours a week, coming home after a long 12-hour day, arms and legs wobbly, feeling like jello, not having any energy to have a decent, family meal. And you know what? All the houses along Homestead were very, very close to the industry. Carnegie wanted his workers close so they could be there a lot. And whenever they walked out, they saw the muggy, foggy, polluted air that was created by all the steel smokestacks. Hundreds and hundreds of smokestacks were in Homestead. It was just a major industrial town. But the people who started, if you're a man, you started in the steel mill. After about 3 months, you would lose a lot of weight, and you'd have to drink a lot of water, gallons a day, to keep from dehydrating. And then the men who churned the ore down in what they called the pit, they could only stay down there for like 2 or 3 minutes before someone would have to come and pick them up because it just got too hot. Working in that hot condition for 12 hours a day was just horrible for them people. It must have been. And I can't really I can try to imagine it, but I can't really get close. And yeah, they were pawns. They were pawns to Carnegie, and Carnegie didn't care about his workers, but he told them that if they would work these long hours, after that all they would soon find financial freedom. And organizations like the Amalgamated Iron and Steel Workers and American Federation of Labor, they didn't really believe in this, and they wanted to fight for the workers' wages, and because they had such strenuous jobs and they were so impoverished. So the Homestead Mill had around 800 union members, and a lot of them who weren't in the union were for the union too, because it was a great way to get people together to fight for better humanitarian, freedom. But Carnegie didn't care for them because he believed that they didn't own the rights to the company, and the decisions on their wages were out of their control. So Carnegie, he went on the defensive after Hugh O'Donnell, one of the leading uh, union members, uh, decided to put in to strike. Frick and Carnegie, Henry Clay Frick was Carnegie's right-hand man, and they were going to slash wages even more. And they knew that there was uh, going to be a strike, even though they wanted to slash these wages. So Frick, he put a huge fence around the industry with barbed wire on the top, and it looked like a war zone. I mean, he hired 300 Pinkerton guards. What he did first was he hired in strikebreakers, which would work for the low wages, and he would push out the other people who didn't want to work. And he hired the Pinkerton guards from the Pinkerton Protection Agency, created in 1850 in Chicago, but he paid them $5 an hour, which was more than half of what he paid the workers, which tells you how much they really cared about him. But what he didn't know was that even though he hired these 300 workers, or these 300 Pinkertons, who by barge went down the Monongahela River towards Homestead to guard the industry, the union members had their own private militia, and they sounded the alarm. And like 5,000 people took to the streets in a big frenzy. And there was men, women, children. Women were holding their babies in their arms in many cases of this upcoming violence. And Hugh O'Donnell, he actually told the Pinkerton force whenever they landed next to Homestead that he didn't want violence, but the Union members and the people, they were ready to be violent. And nevertheless, the captain, Captain Hind of the Pinkertons, he walked out and he hit one of the people who were on shore with his club, and after that, blasts went off. 3 Pinkerton guards were killed that first day, and seven workers and citizens were killed. In all, throughout the whole ordeal, 30 people were wounded, 30 people were killed, and many, many people were wounded. As a result, the Pinkertons, they threw up a white flag, and the unions, they took control of the Carnegie Steel. They also formed an alliance on how to govern the community in this time of craze. And Carnegie at this time had held Frick as the main man because he wasn't going to have anything to do with it. He was overseas in one of his mansions. But, you know, the governor of Pennsylvania, after this was happening, he actually sided with the workers, saying, you know, they didn't deserve to have a militia come in and violently try to take their jobs. But nevertheless, he ordered 12,000 military members to come in and break apart the unions and take them out of the steel mills. And one man, and I had to look at the paper for this. One man, his name was Alexander Berkman. He was an anarchist from Russia, and he drew the blow to the unions. He drew the blow that left them with nothing. The union members, they were going to be blacklisted from any kind of steel industry in the future, and only the non-union workers were going to be able to come back to work for the low wages. But Alexander Berkman, he tried to assassinate Henry Clay Frick. And Henry Clay Frick, he was a pro non-union person. He did not care for people. He believed that, you know, rights belonged to Carnegie. He tried stabbing Frick with a dagger, and he wasn't able to succeed in killing him. But in the public's opinion, it showed the unions as a kind of an anarchist, or kind of a bad influence on the public, and so they were crippled. They weren't allowed to they didn't successfully unionize again for another 45 to 50 years. And Carnegie uh, had his way. He slashed the wages even more for these people, and it wasn't a good end for them. And you know, for Carnegie, he actually, and this is according to my history book, Carnegie's profits had grown from 4 million in 1892 to 40 million in 1900. So I mean, $40 million in 1892. That's a lot of money, and it kind of it's this capitalistic Gilded Age social Darwinist like idea that said that was okay, the survival of the fittest. If you were able to get that money, that was good for you. But yeah, that's what I have for my essay, and so that's all I got. Okay, thanks. Bye.